Ladies and gentlemen, today is a big day. And the reason for that is I got a haircut. Just kidding. That's not the reason. It's actually because the King's Indian course is out on Chessly, finally. And the third reason that today is a big day is today Magnus Carlsen and Gukesh played in the Grand Chess Tour Rapid. And Gukesh played an incredible game of chess. The first game since the infamous table slam. A moment that was seen by 500 million people around the world, memed into oblivion, a budding rivalry. Magnus Carlsen has not had a consistent rival throughout his career. But here it is, and I'm going to show you the recap of this game because it was absolutely sensational. Sensational. It finished just minutes ago. Here we go. Magnus with the white pieces opened the game with the move pawn to c4. Now, this game, they play with 25 minutes on the clock. Gukesh is dominant in classical chess, but has not dedicated as much time to improving his rapid and blitz. Most chess tournaments are played with 2 hours on the clock. 25 minutes is not a lot of time, and 3 minutes or 5 minutes is even less. And so it takes time to become a well-rounded player, a player who can play really well fast and also slow. And before the tournament, Magnus, he answered an honest question in an interview, which was then, exploded out of context. And I don't consider Gukesh one of my stronger rivals in this format. Well, here we go. Gukesh immediately challenging the knight on the c3 square. The most common move here for white is to play the move knight to d5, attacking the bishop. But Magnus plays knight f3. His point is he wants to get into a non-theoretical position against Gukesh. Gukesh's openings are fantastic. He just had a training camp to become the world champion. That means that in the database, in the storage units, he has a lot of ideas that he hasn't even yet played. Black gives up the dark squared bishop to damage the pawn structure, and then solidifies the dark squares with a move pawn to d6. Magnus plays e4, Gukesh plays knight to d7. The fact that Gukesh is playing knight d7 instantly shows that he's still in some preparation. The knight goes to the c5 square. Traditionally, the knight likes to stand on c6, but we invest 2 moves so that we put pressure on white's center on e4 and on d3. The bishop goes back to c2, and Gukesh clearly showing this is still his preparation. He's still in something that he has extensively researched and played. Now, Magnus plays queen e2. So, a couple of ideas here. We want to reposition this knight. This knight is not going to be pressuring the center. We want to move it to d2. Maybe we even want to move it to f1, and then we want to recommit it to come forward. Gukesh plays a5. So, he takes a completely structural, positional approach to the game. Magnus brings the knight back. To anybody watching this that's a beginner and doesn't understand why the guys are not castling, as you get better, you get to break the rules. As a beginner and intermediate player, you should stick to the principles. You should castle. Both of you should castle. You should not move pieces the way these guys are doing it, because you will burn down the kitchen. On to g6 is the first time that there is a thought here from Gukesh's side. And he creates this sort of a position where in the long run, the f5 square is totally covered. So knight f1, the knight will never get successfully to the f5 square. And then when Magnus goes knight f1, with the idea to obviously pin, Gukesh plays here, and then on the next move, he's going to play h6 and g5. Right, so the pin comes in, he plays h6, the bishop is pushed back, and he plays g5. Why is he playing like this? Why does he have the luxury to play like this? Well, he has no interest in putting the king here. He's going to leave his king in the center of the board. How is that possible? Why is that possible? A king in the center of the board is exploitable if the center is open, but you can't open the center. You don't have a d pawn anymore, and this pawn will not be able to trade anything. The computer likes white's position because the computer overestimates the value of a bishop pair. Magnus has the 2 bishops, Gukesh just has 1 bishop. So queen d7 from Gukesh. And now Magnus plays the move f3. It's a very slow type of game, and from this position, it's clear that it is Magnus who feels a little bit more comfortable. He has a 4-minute time advantage. He's really, really taking his time. Both guys are not showing each other their intentions. They are not committing their kings, because maybe you commit your king and black starts an attack. Maybe you want to commit your king this way. Now, Gukesh spends a little bit of time here, and he plays b5. He immediately begins attacking Magnus. He has committed both sets of side pawns. GHAB. This is This is a boxing match. I mean, the man is winging punches at Magnus. Magnus is kind of taking a calculated approach. And, you know, I'm going to make an analogy. Gukesh is playing this game like Ilya Tsapuria, all right, who just became the 155-pound champion with a knockout over Oliveira, probably the greatest three-fight run in history, beating Holloway and Volkanovski and Oliveira. He is just, and now, you know, Magnus, this is not just a chess game. There are very few chess games between elite players over history that are much bigger than chess. I'm talking Fischer-Spassky level. Like, this is, Magnus has not been challenged by a member of the younger generation as consistently as now he has with Gukesh, and the storyline behind it, right? Being the world champion, having the title Magnus used to hold. So now Magnus plays knight to d5. Gukesh gives up his bishop, and we have cd5. And I remember looking at this position and thinking, okay, Gukesh has sort of been a little bit outsmarted here, a little bit, just like the position feels like a Magnus type of game. He controls the game. And on the very next move, you know, Gukesh left Magnus's position. He took a step backwards. Magnus went here. So now Magnus has a 6-minute time advantage. The game is shifting in his direction. He's going to potentially damage the pawns. He's going to potentially create his own counterattack. It doesn't really feel like black has something lurking here. But Gukesh now plays king f8. He says, you know what? This has not gone my way. I just have to make a move. I'm down 8 minutes. I'm going to maybe put my king on g7. How is Magnus going to attack me? Now the ball is hit back to Magnus, who plays g3, a typical Magnus move, just making an improvement. Gukesh also makes an improvement. And now a big moment here. What is next? Well, we're Magnus, so we just make a solid improving move. We're biding time. Queen e7, but you got to do something. Gukesh is baiting you into doing something. Rook g1. We're still not going to do anything. The game is waiting to blow up. Like, are we going to play for h4? We can't go g4 because the knight comes back. Like, are we going to take the knight? Is that an overcommitment? The knight goes back to f6. And Magnus finally lashes out with b4. But look how much time went off his clock. In the span of 3 moves, he went from 20 to 12 to a position where it's 12 to 11 and apparently the wrong move. Apparently, b4 is giving black too much. Apparently, the computer liked long castling and just going ballistic. I mean, just long castle and launching an attack on the other side of the board. With b4, Gukesh now gets life. He gets to open the a file and plants the knight on a4 and is like, well, this seems like an improvement over the previous position. And now Magnus plays bishop d3, which apparently, even though it's a very natural follow-up, apparently is also erroneous. And Gukesh now clutch move c6. You look at that move, you go, what? c6 defends the pawn, but more than anything else, it attacks white's center. And you might be looking and going, isn't that a free pawn? The answer is yes. But the problem is, now Gukesh has backup, d5 anyway. This white pawn is totally cut off. It's like you wrap, like a skin tag. You wrap, it's gonna dry out. The pawn is gone. We're not gonna be saving that pawn. And suddenly, Gukesh is getting counterplay. This little king walk completely got Gukesh back into the game because the center is now opening up. And this is anybody's game. The game is now totally out of control. Magnus plays pawn takes d5, Gukesh plays knight takes d5. Suddenly white is like, wait a minute, why didn't I castle? Frankly, why didn't I castle that way? Now my king is going to be stuck in the center, which could be a problem. It's going to take me multiple moves to safeguard my king. a3. Magnus still keeping control of the game. Here comes Gukesh with rook d8. There are threats on the bishop. There are threats to get in the knight. There's threats like knight b2, deflecting the queen away from the defense of the bishop. Suddenly, it's Magnus Carlsen who's down on time. He was up 8 minutes in the early middle game. He is now down on time. Gukesh not only has been outplaying everybody in this tournament, he's been outplaying people on the clock. Rook d6. Bishop takes b5. Magnus grabs another pawn to clear out the entire left side of the board, but that allows Gukesh to jump in with his knight. Now it's craziness. There is a hanging queen. There is a hanging bishop. Great move here for Magnus. Bishop c5, a counterattack. If you take the queen, I take your queen. If you take my bishop, I take your other knight. So we have this, and this. Magnus gets a rook. Gukesh gets both the bishops, but white is up a lot of pawns. 2 of them, but it really feels like more because this is a 3-on-0. But the problem in this position is the white king. So Magnus starts to run the king. Gukesh goes back with the knight. Now there is a hanging pawn. Now I have ideas like knight c4 and e4 attacking white. And both guys are down to 5 minutes. Magnus goes queen d3. Gukesh plays the best move. Queen e6, the only move in the position to maintain any advantage. Simultaneous threats of infiltration, infiltration over here, e4, covering important key squares. This is a great move. 420 to 530. Magnus with this move goes down to 1:35 and blunders. Rook c5, counterpunch. Now he probably saw that coming, which is why he gave a check. But after king back to g8, which is deemed a miss, but this is just game review being annoying, it's a big problem for white, who moves his rook to the wrong square. Rook e1 was maybe the move, and still the computer wants to hide the king. But after this, pawn takes f3, knight e4 is coming in, queen a2 is coming in, rook a3 is coming in, you have 3 extra pawns, but you can't get them moving. Magnus plays rook e5, and now queen h3! That was the idea all along! There was 2 infiltration spots, h2, g2, both hanging. Magnus has to take a pawn, but rook a3, knight c4 also. Rook a3 is going to be incoming on the next move, which is why rook a5 has to be played. Rook a3, knight c4. If you allow all of it, the king is just hunted out on both sides of the board, so Magnus has to give up a rook to survive the counterattack. His pawn is very close to promotion, but it's just not going to get there. Queen d7, but here comes knight e3. The rook is hanging. Queen g2 is there. Rook d2, check here. And Gukesh comes back with his knight. Knight c6, rook a5. Rook e5 is coming, and Magnus resigns. Gukesh ended this game with a full 10-minute turnaround on the clock and an incredible win. It all came down to Magnus's big decision right here. The computer was screaming for a kingside initiative. It wanted h4 and stuff like this. It wanted long castle into this. But Magnus chose b4, and very quickly Gukesh played c6 and d5. And he was so clutch in the middle game. An incredible game. And with that game, Gukesh wins 5 games in a row. I don't think he's ever won 5 rapid games in a row at this level. Frankly, I'm not sure he's ever won 5 rapid games in a row, period, because he doesn't play a lot of rapid tournaments, and his rapid rating is 2654, which is ridiculous because his classical rating is 2780. What a time. What a time. We have never been closer in the chess world to a generational uprising. It happens in every sport. In every sport, it happens. It happens in tennis. All right? It happens in fighting. You get the next generation of guys. The older guys fight them. And there's this kind of passing of the torch. But in chess, we've never had it. Now, every time it comes close with Magnus, he strikes back. But this is 2 losses in a row now to Gukesh. They will play more in the Blitz, but epic. Epic. As a chess fan and spectator, I am so excited. Now, I have more games for you. Fabiano versus Gukesh. All right? First, maybe we take a look at Carlsen versus Firouzja. This one was a wild game. Magnus opened up with a ready, and it was a reverse Grunfeld. I'm just saying words. Don't mind me. You don't have to pay attention. b3, e3. Kind of like a peaceful game, but here's where things get a bit interesting in this one. So Firouzja grabbed a pawn. Magnus went for counterplay. He has the 2 bishops. He has more activity. He has 5 extra minutes on the clock. He's gonna do Magnus things. Look at Black's position. I mean, White is looking very nice in position to keep the pressure, but Firouzja had a nice defensive repositioning. And even though it looked like Magnus had all the pressure in this game, he got low on time again. Now, these games are out of order. The Gukesh game was the last one played of the day. But Firouzja fought back. And it was Magnus who, with 20, 30 seconds on the clock, was experiencing what most of us other humans experience, unlike the top chess players, which is they don't make the best moves as the time gets lower. And Firouzja, before we knew it, was in an endgame that looked like this. And I was like, wait, Firouzja's just cleanly up a pawn. And the crazy thing is, he then has to win it. Magnus has to hold this endgame. Easier said than done. And it's really easier said than done, because suddenly, Alireza was winning. A couple moves later, it was the draw again, and then in this position, it fell off a cliff very fast. And here, Rook f2 and Rook f3 is just a win. Like, Rook f2 check, Rook f3, picking up the pawn on g3. Firouzja's winning also. He was actually closer to an endgame win here. that he ever was at any portion of this game. But he didn't play. I think he did go rook f3 immediately, and first he needed to play f5. This was the point. He went rook f2, rook f3, which apparently was wrong. He needed to play f5 first, get the pawn a little closer to promotion, because then this is more powerful, picking up the pawn. And here there's king d3. And, you know, it's the king that's going to do all the damage and pick up all the pawns. A very tense game without a lot of time. Firouzja went for the pawns immediately. That gave Magnus just enough time, and we saw defensive heroics like we usually do in the endgame phase. And the game ultimately ended in a draw. So Magnus did not win a game on day 2. He has won 1 game in 6. 4 draws, 1 win, 1 loss. Firouzja almost took him down earlier in the day. But Gukesh won every game on day 2. Every single game. His game against Fabiano Caruana was a ready. He's been playing the ready against a lot of people. He played a Neo Catalan. Not that you have to know any of this. Don't stress about it. He played this move h4. There's some positions where you go here, you threaten this pawn, you play a knight to g5, but then on the very next move he castled. And I remember tuning into this game in this position. I had just finished cutting my hair. My wife helped me out in the with the back, and then I tuned in here and I was like, wait, black is winning here. Black has bishop takes h4. Now, I'm not sure what was calculated by the players, but bishop h4, you cannot take the bishop because queen h4 comes in and queen h2, queen f2 is unstoppable. Fabi spent some time and went h5. He spent 8 minutes. Obviously, he saw bishop takes h4. Obviously, he saw something he didn't like. I don't know what he didn't like. Maybe he didn't see bishop takes h4, but I imagine that, you know, he really looked at this move. And maybe he just saw that there were some nasty complications, like maybe some sort of bishop f3 or something, and then, but I don't know. I actually don't know. And here, I don't know. But bishop h4 is a really, really powerful move. The second Fabi didn't play it, Gukesh completely started consolidating. And again, another game in this tournament where this man has a time advantage. And he is so clutch. d4 on the board. With 5 minutes and an avalanche pouring straight down the middle of the board against you. e4, d5, the position breaks open, all the pieces get traded, and it is only one-way traffic. Bishop f6, knight back to f6, queen takes f5, a queen sacrifice. If you take, I have knight to e7. That is exactly what happened. And Gukesh is a pawn up with the initiative with a 12-minute time advantage against Fabiano Caruana. Knight into d6, e4, e5, consolidation. Rook e5 hits every pawn. It's a very difficult endgame to defend, and difference here compared to the Alireza Firouzja game is that there are more pawns, and the king for black is quite passive, and white is going to very quickly get a position where black cannot move anything. Anything. The rook and the king are passive. The white king walks forward. The white king is going to walk over to the queen side, and this is a totally winning position because white will pick up the pawn and start pushing. And even though Fabiano can take on h4 after a7, it's time to resign. Gukesh beat Fabi. Gukesh beat Magnus. And Gukesh even beat a member of his own generation. Nodirbek Abdusattorov has been his biggest rival in the rivalry between Uzbekistan and India. Like, these two have met at the Olympiad. They have met at freestyle chess. They have met all over the place. Gukesh doesn't just get games done with white. He gets them done with black. He beat Magnus with the black pieces. This one a Nimso Indian defense. Now let's check this game out. Castles. When Gukesh is playing the previous generation, Fabiano, Magnus, obviously, there is a chip on the shoulder because you want to prove like you belong. You want to prove that you are here and ready to take over. It's different to play guys in your generation who have those same emotions. C5, bishop to b5, h6. All right, we are officially out of the preparation zone. And from the opening, it's maybe Nodirbek who has a slightly more pleasant position. But he should have taken on f6 because when he takes on c5, Gukesh now plays this move, and white is never going to castle. It's just a very minor inconvenience. But when you play against Gukesh, a very minor inconvenience turns extremely major, extremely fast. Queen d4. In every game Gukesh has played, he has played fearless chess. Against Fabiano, it was the move, d4, shredding open the position. Against Magnus, it was the move c6 followed by d5. Insanely clutch. Against Nodjebek, it is the move g5. A same side pawn attack, pushing Nodjebek backwards, jumping in with the knight. It's given a question mark, but when the computer thinks on a higher depth, it actually really appreciates this move. Game review, just a little bit drunk. Rook c1, queen a8, just like in the Ali Reza game. And you know that when a piece is coming back to d1 and you can't make a move, it is a problem. Gukesh plays rook c8, not the most accurate, but the white king is about to get brutally hunted, and it's going to be really, really bad. Rook b7, bishop into c4, queen a5, and look at this position, an absolutely merciless game. Queen to a6, threatening bishop e2, bishop f1, queen in on d3, and by the way, that queen is hanging. If anybody's watching the recap, like, why was the queen not taken? That was a counterattack. After this move, the queen only has one safe square. Black wins this game in a variety of ways. There's, various bishop moves. You just have to be careful not to hang your rook. So like knight d4, pawn takes bishop b3, you can resign. Gukesh has now won 5 games in a row in this format. He leads the tournament. Another guy who's having a fantastic tournament is the Polish man, Jan Krzysztof Duda. All right, who in this game against Anish Giri plays what's called a Cozio variation of the Spanish opening, an extremely rare weapon. So rare it wasn't covered in the Ruy Lopez course, but still, the ideas are the same. To go for a quick d4, there it is. And in this game, Duda played like this. It's a very obscure setup where black doesn't take any of the center at all. And then queen d3 back, bishop to e3. And Duda just got a nice position where white couldn't really generate much play. Had a bishop walled in. Duda played knight to e5, g6, controlling the white knight on the g3 square, and slowly expanded the position. Took over on the queen side with rook a8. Anish Giri tried to go for counterplay down the center. It looked actually quite promising, but the queen side became weak. The king side became weak, and it's just a matter of time until mistakes are made in low time, which they will be, I promise. King to f2. It looked like Anish was generating some very good play. It even looked like his safety net of getting into an endgame was possible, but as things happen in rapid chess, they deteriorate very quickly. Knight takes e5 is the wrong move. Apparently, you had to move the king. He trades because he thinks opposite colored bishops. Suddenly, this is an extremely difficult game because even though you have to defend this pawn, you have to also go protect this pawn. And when you play this move, I think what he had missed is that after queen g4, black has the incredible f5. This is probably what he had missed, deflecting the queen away. Because now, queen here, queen b3, queen c2, mate is threatened, this pawn is promoting, and Duda wins the game. He just simply wins the game. The pawn is queening and mate is threatened, and a queen trade is threatened. And Duda is also having a fantastic tournament. In the final day of action, which I will cover for you, Gukesh is winning with 10. Remember, a win in rapid is 2 points. And Duda and Gukesh have played. Duda beat Gukesh. Wesley is in third. Magnus tied with 2 other people for the 4th place spot. Nodjebek having a rough time. Fuja actually not having a great time as well. So tomorrow, I mean, Magnus can't win this tournament. He can't win the rapid. Gukesh, if he wins one more matchup, is probably already the winner, which is incredible stuff. Super fun to witness. Spanish is out on Chessly. King's Indian is out. We have a monthly challenge in July. Go check it out. That's all I have for you today. What an epic day of chess. No tables were hurt in the making of this video or in that game. Get out of here.